In this section, we will cover the fundamentals of CSS, which include the syntax of CSS, places that CSS rules can reside, and the concept of inheritance. For these movies, when appropriate, we will be playing around inside of the CSS sandbox files that we took a look at in an earlier movie. So first of all, let's take a look at CSS rules. As defined from a previous movie, cascading style sheets are collections of style information that control HTML appearance, and these sheets are made up of individual rules. Now each rule can be applied to one or many HTML elements depending on how that rule is written. Understanding how these rules are composed will help us understand how CSS works. In fact, this is the very core of CSS, and once you grasp this, the rest just kind of falls into place. Essentially, everything else that is covered in this course is based off of what we are getting ready to discover about CSS syntax, and that is, CSS rules follow a very simple syntax. So here is an example for us to kind of break apart. Don't worry too much about what this is actually saying right now. Let's focus on the pieces of it. We have two main sections to our rules. We have the selector, which is going to be over to the left, and we have a declaration block, which will be over to the right. Our selector and declaration block are going to be separated out because the declaration block has these scroll braces around it. Essentially, the selector is going to tell the browser what it is that we want to target to stylize, and the declaration block is going to tell the browser what aspects of that object we want to change and how. The declaration block houses the declaration. Now here we see we have one declaration, but it is possible to have multiple declarations inside of a declaration block. Each declaration inside of the declaration block will state which property we want to affect and what value to use on that property. The semicolon at the end only is really necessary when you have multiple declarations. However, I find it helpful to add it as I go along because then I don't have to worry about adding it later whenever I add in a new declaration to this rule. Plus, I'm kind of in the habit of adding semicolon at the end of different statements because I work with various programming languages. So if you're planning on picking up any programming language in the future, it might be a good idea to get in the habit of adding these semicolons on at the end because it's just kind of a good habit to have. And that's it. That's the syntax for CSS. And as I mentioned, it is a very simple syntax. We have selector, property, and value. Now, where it gets kind of tricky, as we'll see in upcoming movies, is trying to figure out what selector to best use to target the element that we want to target, and knowing which property we want to manipulate and how to manipulate it. And that's kind of the goal for the rest of this course. I want to help you figure out what we are looking at when it comes to selectors, values, and properties so that you'll be able to most effectively design the rules that you need to create the styles that your web designs are going to need. And really, that's what the rest of this course is about as we will go into the different aspects of our CSS rules.